Welcome everybody. It's a really great pleasure to introduce Eugenio Proto to you. Eugenio is at the University of Glasgow, where he is the Alec Cairncross Professor of Applied Economics and Econometrics. He earned his PhD in economics at the Free University in Brussels and previously was at Warwick as well as at Bristol. The remarkable thing about Eugenio is that he has an incredible wide range of interests, from growth and behavioral economics to experimental economics. And correspondingly, he published in leading economics journals, as you would expect, but also in a very broad general interest journals in PNAS, Nature, Communication, and so forth. So he's going to talk today about mental health trajectories during the COVID-19 pandemic. Before you start, I also want to point out that Eugenio is a colleague of Alberto Giangio, who's been both a graduate of our economics department as well as has been a postdoc here for many years. And Alberto was part of why we made this connection. Anyway, thank you very much, Eugenio, for being here. We look forward.
Thank you very much, Hans-Peter, and thank you for this presentation, a flattering presentation. I'm very, very honored to be here speaking in such an outstanding Ivy League university in the US. Being an economist, I'm used to a very wild bunch, so don't worry if you have a question at any time, any moment, okay? It's completely normal with me, especially probably because I will be using some tools which are probably not, don't know to which extent, but it could be more econometric, so if there is anything you don't understand, please interrupt me at any time. I've got 1 hour, do I? 1 hour, right? So I'm going to talk about mental health deterioration, especially in the COVID pandemic era, but at the end, I want to show you a bit of patterns in the UK, of mental health in the UK. And I'm very happy to get your feedback from it, what you think, is anything you want to say, obviously, is very welcome. So it's a no-brainer that this period, had a big toll on our mental health, okay? Just to give you a bit of idea, clearly personal worries, concern about health of the other people next to us, financial uncertainty, economy seemed to be falling apart at some point, work and school closures, you had to live with your kids in the home, worries for them to get the right level of education, social isolation, no social contact. Most of us experienced unemployment and subsequent income loss. The fact that you were living in a confined environment resorted into violence. Mental health was cluttered. It was difficult for the mental service to operate. A lot of internet use, much more than probably what we would be healthy to do that. Little physical activity. Okay, so it's everything conjured against our mental health this period. It's a no-brainer. What today I'm going to do is presenting 2 papers been published. The first one has been published on very quickly, actually. We were one of the first papers that noticed something I'll show you. And it was good to publish on +1 because it could publish pretty fast. We beat basically everybody else. They were very upset about that. And this other one is instead a bit more deep, if you want, in terms of theory of, what we found. It's been published on PNAS. And then I will present you something. Alberto is involved as well on some UK trend in mental health. It's not a published paper. It's just an exploration for the moment of what's going on. And that part is, I'm sure it will be, hopefully will inspire you with comments. You can obviously comment on everything else. Now, let's start with the first paper, which is the first thing. I got just after the lockdown, a couple of weeks afterward, I started to download the data from Understanding Society, which is the main UK social data set. And it was good because you had a very good mental health indicator. It was already introduced 20 years ago. 12 GHQ health questionnaire. I'll show you what it's about. It's very good. It's very good. It's well validated. It's accepted. It's nice. It's easy to interpret. I like this. And what we did was something very simple, try to understand what was the impact of the pandemic on population. And the simplest way to do is to take people which were interviewed during the pandemic at the beginning, in this case, and before, the year before, because, you know, there is a panel, the Understanding Society is a panel, and compare their mental health. You know, very simple investigation. This is what I started to do. And obviously, the first thing we wanted to see, I was interested actually, is on ethnicity and gender, okay? So what we found, okay, here we say confirm previous findings because we have been nice to some people that published these things slightly before us, but published on internet, not on things. So but we've been nice, okay. So that the largest increase in mental distress were found among women in general. That was really we were one of the first to find that. And regardless of their ethnicity, okay? And also, we found something together with other papers, the fact that men from ethnic minority at that point we used the word BMA, okay? And it was completely fine to use this word. I understand now, some people say it's slightly politically incorrect, but for this paper, when we wrote this paper, it was completely fine. So I will use this word. I hope you don't mind. So then we found this very big deterioration for men in the ethnic community, okay, ethnic minorities. So women in general and men in the ethnic minorities. What is really specific to our paper is that the gender gap in mental health increases only among white British individuals. Okay, so the gender gap, which means basically that the women white deteriorate more than the men white deteriorate less. The gender gap in white increased more than in a BAME community, which means the mental health of the white didn't deteriorate that much. Okay. That was the finding, which is quite puzzling, and we'll try to give an answer for that. And among the BAME community, the one who seemed to be in England, we are talking about England clearly, and I think it's very English specific, the worst deterioration has been observed among the South Asian community, okay? The Bangladeshi, Indian, and Pakistani, that we refer as BIP. This is our finding. Now, just to tell you this, because it's going to be important also for the next paper, the 12-item general health questionnaire. These are 12 items. This is measure the symptoms. Okay, symptoms, very simple. It's a very simple questionnaire. It measures symptoms in terms of lost concentration, loss of sleep, feeling usefulness, decision capability, how you feel in charge, whether you're under strain, if you feel difficulty, if you enjoyed your daily activity, if you have been able to face problem, if you feel depressed, if you experience loss of confidence, worthlessness, or general happiness has gone down. Okay, these are all symptoms. The symptom is very simple. This index is very simple. Consider the symptoms and tell, you have 1 symptom, you have 2 symptoms, you have 3 symptoms, you have 4 symptoms, okay? This is the way they aggregated it. Some people aggregate with caselessness, okay? Some people instead will aggregate with by aggregating the magnitude of the symptoms, just averaging. This is a bit our data, the data of Understanding Society for this paper. We have 11,000 white British. The number of the nombre de BMA, it's about 1,000. Female are a bit more than male. And this is a bit the data we are using. We are using the weights that the Understanding Society suggests. And this is the first, the main, if you want, the main picture. So let's spend a bit of time on that. This is average. In this case, it's average. Okay, so high means a lot of symptoms, strong symptoms. That means that if you look at the men, for example, the white British men, okay, they experience some deterioration between the previous wave and the wave of the first wave of the lockdown, which was April 20,000. You can see there is more deterioration, but this difference is nowhere near, for example, the one experienced by women. Nowhere near. And I will talk about white British. Now, if you look at BMA women and white British women, the deterioration is not that different. It's not that different. And if you look at the BAME men, deterioration is not that big, actually. But what is striking is the difference between this and this. That's really the finding. Men, BMA, men belonging to BMA communities seem to have experienced a lot of mental health deterioration. Okay? Women have experienced more mental health deterioration than men, and that's an interesting finding. But doesn't seem to be anything to do with ethnicity. Both white and non-white women, they seem to have experienced similar deterioration. Okay, that's, I think, this is the gist of this paper. Now, we focused, instead of considering the BMA, the BAME, we focused on a specific category because we noticed effectively that we didn't have many data for black responders, and it was a bit confusing, the picture. While we had a lot of data for Southern Asian, which probably reflect the UK population, so we could be a bit more specific on that. And if you look at that with BIP, you see the same pattern. You see, if you take the BIP men, the deterioration is incredible. It's very, very high. It's very, very high. It's even higher actually than with women. While for the British men, deterioration is not that big. So this is specific. Seems to be a puzzle which is specific to Southern Asian population more than black. Now, clearly, we wanted to go a bit farther than that. Okay, what an economist does when he wants to go farther than that, throw in control variables. That's one way. And this is what we did. We ran a multivariable regression. Okay, I think you are all familiar with multivariable regression. And we put control. We put control for age, the month of the interview, whether interview happened face-to-face, household size, whether living in a couple, so it's marital status, place of residence, because London was very different from the rest, qualification, education, employment status, personal income, and this is very important, An indicator for at least one health condition in April, so it's morbidity. Now, after you do that, we didn't find any difference. I haven't shown you the number. I didn't report the number in the presentation, but you have to trust me. They didn't find any difference. It was the same sort of big, strong effect for BMA men. Okay, so that was. And this is important because the first thing we thought is maybe the BMA community are poorer. Okay, so that's why they're more affected now. But here we control for personal income, employment indicators. So you see, they should take into account these things. Or even we thought, okay, maybe they were a bit more. It's well known that the BAME community's health is less good than for the white, and we put this indicator, and this didn't work. So what we thought, the only possibility for us to explain these things was the fact that Two things. First of all, the isolation. I'm an Italian man. I really need to stay around people, okay? Breeds a bit less than that. I do. And I'll see, I need to see my friends more often. And I'm sure BAME community, they live a lot together. So this pandemic, this contrast jeopardized a lot the capacity for these people to stay together. And that's a possibility, especially for men. They couldn't go and drink their beer.
Was wondering, did the whole distribution shift, or did only kind of the upper end shift? So, so basically, did depression increase mostly among people who were already relatively depressed?
That was
previously, or basically did the whole distribution moved over and did that?
Look, I think GHQ is good to detect mild problems, okay? So in my view, people who had already a lot of issues, a lot of symptoms, they are not, you see, they don't increase the number of symptoms. The GHQ the GHQ is normally measured at the beginning. Whether you go to the doctor for the first time and say, I have some problem with mental health, that's the first question. But it's not very good to detect when the symptom gets worse, okay? So I guess what happens is that these are people who never experienced before mental health problem, and they started to experience that because it's the nature of the GHQ. I'll get back to you. I think I also have a more precise answer in the next paper, and I'll come back, yeah. But that's a good point. Okay, first possibilities, this fact that they were living constrained, far away from their friends, from the usual community. That's a possibility. Another possibility, which in the UK is very common, these are frontliners workers. The South Asian are frontliners workers. People who drive public, the tram or the buses, or even doctors, actually. There are really a lot of doctors are South Asian in England, in the UK. It's quite striking, this. Or people also own small shops, still frontliner. So that could be a reason. You see, they were really exposed to the COVID, so the worries all the time. So that could be another answer. Okay, but doesn't look like income per se could be the answer. It must be a bit more nuanced like that. Okay. Now I close this. Before starting the next paper, do you have any question on that? Okay. So now instead, this is more about instead of considering a characteristic like gender and personality, gender and ethnicity, here we are going to consider something a bit less common to consider, which is personality trait. I discovered while I was doing this paper that there is a huge literature, which I was not aware of it, link personality trait and mental health. There is also a journal of mental health and personality. I had no idea whatsoever about that. That's apparently it's a big, there is a lot of scholars doing these things. I didn't know that. So, and there is this meta-analysis, this quote of et al. That it's very precise, explain what they find. It was very useful. Why is so important analyzing the differential effect of academic personality? Why? Why is so important? Why you want to know who are the personalities who have been more affected in terms of mental health during the pandemic? Well, first of all, I'm trying to convince the government, the British government, myself, that is a way to identify a risk group. So if you go there to a doctor, you say, I have some issue. Well, these personality questionnaires are very simple to give to the people. Like there are like 15 questions, and you can already gauge if he's at a risk person, which I think will add a bit of help, no, for doing. So that's policy. Second, my hope is that I interested this kind of community. At the moment, they haven't reacted, to tell you the truth. I tried, but I hope, since it's been now published pretty well, the paper, sooner or later they will come out with something. But at the moment, no. But I think it can shed more light on this literature, because this literature clearly do not have a shock. So what is this? This analysis is really a natural experiment. Okay, so all of a sudden you have a situation which is very artificial, where people are forced to do something which they don't normally do. How do they react? That's a very powerful natural experiment. That's why I think we put with a stress test, which I haven't seen in this literature so far. I think it should be interesting for these people. Yeah, and last but not least, try to understand a bit better the COVID restriction effect, okay? Because you start to reason in terms of who was more affected than what. So we used the understanding society. It's called UKEHLS, which is very interesting because these people did a fantastic job. They didn't only they did several waves, almost every month during it was a fantastic job. I mean, I've never seen anything so good. So it was very nice. So we used the representative UK population, and we were lucky because years before, the same they measured personality trait and cognitive skills. So we used the measure taken years before. Psychologists think that these things, especially personality, is quite crystallized after you are 18. Do not change that much, okay? So you can use old data and personality doesn't change much. I had this feeling when I see my schoolmate, high schoolmate, I see them again, I don't see them change that much. Okay, so I believe that personality do not change that much after all. So yeah. Now I'll give you an overview of the result, and then we'll go through it, and then I will interpret the result. So what we found is that openness is a particularly strong, and seem to be increasing in magnitude to the identity of people. So people are particularly open to experience. They have a very open personality, seem to have been particularly affected by the pandemic, by the lockdown. On the contrary, people low in agreeableness are more affected. So people high in agreeableness, they seem to have been affected a bit less. High in extroversion are more affected. This is not surprising, obviously. People enjoy the social interaction. And this is a bit the point which probably you refer to your point. Neuroticism, yes, has got the negative effect you would expect, but surprisingly insignificant. Now, I'll tell you this point, then I will comment upon on the other later. But just because Hans opened the discussion, in my view, people are high in neuroticism are also people who have mental health issue. Okay. And for these people who were already used to have mental health issue, probably the pandemic didn't make things worse. That's my feeling, which I think is very interesting after all. Yeah.
Just so I'm hearing this correctly, you're really talking about the strength, the slope of the increase associated with COVID,
yeah,
and how that varies as a function of personality.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really the change of the slope. Yeah.
So neuroticism has a negative effect on the slope.
It's a shift downwards, but not because of the pandemic, but because they are neurotic. I'll show you the data. Yeah. So we have 7 waves, which was amazing. This Understanding Society measured these things: April, May, June, July, September, November, and June. These are all the waves I've used. And they used as a pre-COVID wave to make the difference between the pre-COVID, the 2017-2019. And the personality trait were measured in wave 3, so basically 6 years before the main wave. We have eventually we end up with a balanced panel of about 5,000 individuals and an attrition of 36%. Now, that's not the good number to consider. Is this the good number to consider? Why? I'll tell you later, but just to give you a gist. This difference is due to the fact that we had to use wave 3. So we used only older people. Okay, so that this what I'm going to present you is not representative of the population between, say, 19 and 90. No, it's representative of the population between 19 plus 6, which is 25, because they were the people who were represented in wave 3. Okay, so that is attrition, but it's attrition that you know where it's coming from. It's attrition that reduced the age of representativeness. It's not particularly serious. I mean, it's serious in the sense that, okay, but not in terms of bias. Okay, now, okay, this is an attrition analysis. Probably, I have a bit of time. We can talk. So this is a bit what I said. This is the balance pay panel, which is 8,000 people. Okay. The balance panel is 1,000 people. This is the wave 3, the wave that we have a personality trait, okay? And it was the 6,000 people. So after we put this and that, we lose quite a few observations, okay? But why we lose this observation? Because people in wave 3, they were too young. They were not interviewed. Here, for example, people, they were in year 19, they would have been 13 here, so they were not considered. That's why we have this reduction. Here, then we added the previous, the pre-COVID wave, but doesn't change much. And then after we drop some missing value, we get this 5,000. Now, clearly the total attrition is the difference between 1 and 4. But the one we are interested is the difference between 3 and 4, because I told you, we dropped younger people because we didn't observe young people fine. As long as we consider this representative of population above 24, 25, it's not a big deal. Now, let's analyze now whether we have some serious bias that we need to be worried about. Well, the only significant difference is year of birth, but that's unsurprising. I told you already, okay? We have younger people that have been thrown out, so that's... For the rest, there is really no... the p-value is never represented. It's never below 10% or 5% for what matters. So we can confidently say that attrition, apart reducing the age bracket, was not particularly problematic for us. By the way, attrition analysis is not something economists do. Do you know that? It's not something economists do. But I wanted to present here because I think you might be more receptive to this sort of things. Economists, it's a strange reason. We have obsession. We are obsessed about identification, which is making sure that an effect and a cause are that one. Okay, fair enough. But we are completely neglecting representativity. No? So then we test things in a completely unrepresentative environment, but is well identified. It's not very clever. I think, but anyway, that's... every profession has got the obsession. I'm sure you have your own. Anyhow, personality trait. We had this discussion before. Ileana, these are the personality trait, the big 5. These are 15 questions. The first big 5 were measured about 200 questions. Now, a good thing is 60. This is 15 because it's normally used for large surveys. When you have large surveys, even a 15 is sufficient, is enough, okay? Otherwise, 60, 65. But this is 15, but because a large sample is normally considered somewhat similar, good. So you see A means agreeableness, C conscientiousness, E extroversion, and neuroticism. O again, and O is openness. So you see, for example, if you want open personality, somebody who come out with high level, when you say, yes, I am very much, coming with a new idea, I'm somebody very creative. Typically, people high on openness are artists, you know. Artists tend to be very high on openness. Extroversion, somebody very talkative, yeah, somebody enjoying social interaction. Okay. N is somebody neuroticism. I like the definition of sensitive to threats. I think the best definition of neuroticism is this: somebody who worries a lot, who see threat everywhere. Okay, and that's a neurotic. Bit Woody Allen, he portrays himself as a neurotic. I'm not sure he is really, but at least he plays this. Agreeableness are people who have a lot of social preferences. They are altruistic. They trust a lot. C are people conscientious. Are people who are very precise. They enjoy precision. Extroversion. These are all three for each one. Okay. So this is the Big Five system, which is the most commonly used Big Five personality system. Another thing I want to say is, I think it's very strong, the effect on personality. Whenever you put data on it, it's very strong effect on personality. Economists don't at the moment. My paper on personality are published in non-economic journal. And I guess the reason is because it's a bit noisy, the way you measure these things, okay? And clearly, because it's a question, and why you should be truthful when you answer this question. You might not. So that may generate noise. And the economists don't like noisy things.
Many perceive personality as fixed.
Many person, yeah, but that's true. But yeah. Because there is no policy, right? Okay. Yeah, in this respect, yeah. Yeah, but anyway, this is the thing. Okay, now I'll probably answer your question with this graph. This is the total increase in deterioration. Read this in terms of increased deterioration. Here it means that respect to the pre-COVID wave, people get in average one more symptom. It's huge. Think about a population of 60 million people, okay? 60 million people, in average experience. These are representative. I argued before, it's a representative sample. It's huge. One more symptom in average for everybody. Think about 60 million people. It's a lot. The magnitude is amazing. One more symptom in average. Then, it declined a lot. If you remember, in July, people start to be relaxed because effectively the virus almost disappeared for summer. And they say, it's gone. You made a lot out of nothing. What's going? I went to the seaside in Italy actually with that period. So in fact, it went almost to the level. Zero is the level of pre-COVID, no? When it's identical. But then clearly the reality struck back, and people start to see again, and they start to increase dramatically. And this is last January 2021. Okay, this is what's going on. Now, what I did here to give you a first idea of what's going on, I picked up the top 25 and the bottom 25 of each personality. Okay, so the red are the red line are the most open, and the blue line are the least open. Okay, now you see the red line is always above the blue line, so it means that they experience more deterioration than the least open. And if you can see, you see the difference is not negligible. We are talking about 60 million people, okay? So it's a lot, okay? That difference can be 0.1. It's not negligible at all.
You mentioned cognitive ability. Do these models just for cognitive ability? Because cognitive ability is strongly correlated with openness.
Yeah, I put in the regression the cognitive ability here. Cognitive skills, yeah, we put it there. And here we have everything without that. But anyway, I'll give you also another answer, which was interesting. We found that women with high level of cognitive skills were more affected, which was interesting, I think, because not only women are in general more affected, but especially the one with high level of cognitive skill. And then, you know, this also can also enhance, you know, exacerbate the pay gap that we are already observing. That's an important thing.
Is that a raw correlation, or is that, because there's also gender differences and all these personality traits as well. So I'm wondering if it's a raw correlation, or if that's an interaction with, say, agreeableness, openness, neuroticism, something like that.
No, this at the moment I'm presenting raw data, basically. I have just aggregated data. If you want to see something more, you know, after you take away, everything else is this. But, you know, okay? But I'll come back on that. Now, yeah, agreeableness, the opposite, you see. People who were less agreeable, which are the blue, sorry, people who were more agreeable, which are the red, experience less deterioration than the people who are more agreeable. I will interpolate that, so bear with me. Just keep in mind, it will come up. I will interpret that, but just I'm showing you the data. Extraversion, that's another interesting finding. People who are more extroverts, effectively, they seem to, at the beginning at least, they were more affected. But in the end, there was not much difference on that. Now, there is quite an agreement that extroverts also people are very resilient, you know. They manage to find their own way in a way or another. And probably, in this case, they might have coped with social platforms, their need of social interaction. So that's why we don't observe this at the end, but at the beginning. Neuroticism. Now, neuroticism goes exactly in the direction you would expect, okay? You would see that people are more neurotic, which are the red, experience more deterioration than the white, than the blue. But bear with me, because after we control for everything, that effect disappears. You see, that effect, this is an interesting finding. Conscientiousness, they seem to be at the opposite of the extraversion, affected in the sense that highly conscientious people, they were less affected than less highly conscientious people, but at the end. Now, I answer your question and your question as well. We control for all these things. We control for cognitive skill. There are actually, in the STEM society, there is a very nice battery of cognitive skills. There is working memory, episodic memory, verbal fluence, problem solving, fluid reasoning. It's very well done. And we took the principal component. We could have averaged, you know, something. Here we put job status, okay, because, you know, personality might have affected job status, and it was the job status that then affected the mental health. Also the income, whether they have any long-term condition, month of the interview, age, region, marital status, and this. And after controlling for this, we took the coefficient, okay? And the coefficient we plotted here with the confidence intervals, okay? So we did, this is the raw data, this is the data after we control for everything. So, unsurprisingly, we find that, for example, openness, they are always above, so the coefficient is positive, affect negatively mental health because increase the symptoms. Agreeableness tend to be negative, like we said. Extroversion at beginning is positive, then it goes to 0. Surprise, surprise, neuroticism disappear. Now, okay, I'll get back to that. Conscientiousness seemed to be a bit negative-ish, at least at the beginning, not that much. Okay, these are the data. Now we can go to the interpretation of the data. Okay, openness reflects preference for exploration. So if you are constrained, you cannot go to the theater, you cannot go to listen to music, you cannot do things that you enjoy life because you like to do new things. So you're confined. So this is another thing which I wanted to emphasize opens are also people are innovative, who have innovation. Now, if this effect is there, well, the society might have a problem. We don't know how this effect is going to last, okay? But some people think that this effect will last long. Well, people will be, if the effect are the people open, we might experience a decline in innovation in the future years because of these people have been affected. Could be, we don't know. Agreeableness, this is very interesting because of my ex-ante prediction was not clear at all with the agreeableness, you see. On one side, agreeable are people are manage very well the social contact. So in a closed environment, you want to stay with somebody agreeable if you are confined in a closed environment, okay? If somebody grumpy, come on. You want somebody nice, you want somebody understanding, and these are people agreeable. So they manage well in that environment. However, agreeableness are also supposed to be altruistic, people caring about the others. Well, if you are altruistic, you see other people suffering because of the pandemic, dying. Some friends have died, personal friends as well. So you cannot be that happy. But it looks like the first effect overweighted the second effect. Okay, economists will tell we are cynical people. We say no, there are really no people altruistic. They're just pretending to be altruistic, just to get a bit easy life. Okay, so in that respect, maybe economists might be right. Extraversion, okay, that I told you. These are people who love social. It's not the people that they know how to do social interaction. Extraversion are people enjoying social interaction. Okay, they enjoy social reward. Okay, if an extrovert does something nice, he will put on Facebook, and he like to have a lot of likes. He enjoys, he or she enjoys. And that's clearly in an environment where you cannot see your friends, at least at the beginning. Well, it's a hard time for an extrovert to be there. Now, neuroticism here. What's going on with the neuroticism? Again, I'll tell you exactly what I said before to Hans Peter. Neurotic are probably people who have already passed the pandemic problem. So they have much more serious problem than the pandemic. So for them, the pandemic is one of the millions problem they feel. So that's probably why the neurotic didn't come out to be so strong. But also, this tells you something very important that I try to pass to the government, to the British government. You have to be careful because people who have been affected are probably people you wouldn't suspect they have been affected, okay? So take people seriously. Don't only go to the people who are already neurotic and try to see if they have had not. That's not the way. You really need to look at the normal people. At the normal people who are not used, sorry, I used the normal in the wrong way, I'm sorry, apologize. I would say to the people who are not used to go to the psychiatrist all the time, okay? So that's not the right person probably that have been more affected.
So do you have any evidence on whether people with different personality traits were differently affected by the pandemic? So, whatever, some storyline, if you're extroverted, you're more likely to work in a set of professions that have, maybe layoffs or something like this. So,
look, we have job status, but effectively you're right. We don't have a control for professions, no. This is a possibility, there might be a confounding, like that, absolutely, we don't control for professions in this case, no. We control, for example, region. Maybe we know in the city are people more extrovert living there. So, but for profession, no, we don't have that. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, now last 15 minutes. Let's forget COVID. I'll show you some general data on mental health. So why is it interesting to know what's going on after around 12 in mental health? Because in the UK, the life expectancy has stalled after that period, okay? So people do not, there was an increase in life expectancy until 2011, now has stalled. Some people say they are declining. And clearly, some people, they are blaming the austerity measure that has been put by the government after the Great Recession. So a good question is to understand even if the mental health will follow this decline in mortality and decline of mental life expectancy, okay? So what we do, we try to get these trends from different sources, okay? From different sources. There are plenty of data, nice data in the UK. And we consider our usual general health questionnaire. In this case, we talk about prevalence. People who score 4 more symptoms, so people who have already serious issue in it. And we are using the usual understanding society, which is representative of Great Britain. We took away Ireland, okay, but it's representative of Great Britain. We use the Scottish Health Survey and the Health Survey for England. These are kind of twins surveys, while this is a bit for everything. Now, this is the whole picture, okay? So this is understanding society. This is the English one, and this is the Scottish one. The triangle is the Scottish one. If you aggregate the data, I don't know why British households it's above or the others. Maybe, I don't know. I will not speculate on that. But what we can observe that even if you aggregate everything, you could see that this is prevalent, so high means more deterioration. We can see effectively that after 2010, this seemed to be consistent, an increase of something going on, an increase of deterioration, which seemed to match the problem with life expectancy. But this is first picture. What is interesting is this, I think. This is most interesting picture. That tendency is exacerbated if you consider young people, 16 to 35. I think this is known. Is common in the United States, I believe, as well. Okay. Here it reflects a bit more the aggregate. This is new. We didn't know that. Nobody, at least we had no recollection of any paper saying this. But look like older population seems to have a better ride here. It seems to be declining their deterioration, so becoming more healthy, okay? Here we have to be careful, obviously, because we are talking about, these are 1990, it was a very different population than is now, okay? So their health has increased and, so, but yeah, that's a fact that there is this striking difference between the three groups, and this is consistent in the three data set we are analyzing. Here we also make a difference between male and female. It's well known that female, they report more mental health issue than male, but again the picture is very similar to the one at the beginning. So I think this is interesting. Now my question is, are you anyhow surprised by that or not? Or it's something that you already know?
I'm not.
You are not. So you knew also this?
Well, in the United States, when mortality, life expectancy stalled, mortality has gone up in working ages, not among the elderly. So most of the leveling off or declining life expectancy is driven by these younger cohorts. Especially, in some ways, 25 to 44-year-olds, even more so than.
So it's the mortality. Yeah.
And I think even that's more or less what Megan and Morgan also found, a deterioration of mental health among the younger adults. So this would be very consistent with what's happening in the US.
But did you see clearly measure of mental health, or you're talking only on mortality?
I didn't look at mental health, but our students did. And see how.
It's a somewhat different measure, but it's the same
You have some effect, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I mean, clearly this is well known. It's very worrisome. People blame the social media. Certainly, I mean, my daughters, they are 14, 18. They go through terrible pressure school-wise. I mean, my daughter is finishing the A levels. Is the
One thing I wonder if you could look at this by educational attainment, because the increase in mortality in the United States is more limited to the poorly educated or not college graduates, but below college graduates.
Yeah,
So I wonder, and you know, they may have. So that may be
some
part of
economic,
so
socioeconomic.
Yeah, I might look at this by
Yeah.
educational attainment or something.
We classify different socioeconomic groups.
I know you do it differently.
Yeah, but this is the way.
Education is, I think, the usual one too.
Yeah. No, I don't think we find too much in terms of socioeconomic group. I mean, clearly there is a shift. Okay, the socioeconomic group, but there is not. Yeah. The change is no. The change is identical. Okay, there is a here.
Not here for mortality.
For mortality, and probably.
It also depends how you measure change. If you measure the relative change or the absolute change in the mental health.
Yeah. No, we haven't found. We found a shift. I mean, there is a clear difference.
Shift, but we find different
shape, which is what we are at trends. Okay, trend, which is what. Yeah, I think this is what the moment where we are. Maybe we are trying to publish this, quickly, just to have something done. But that was, this analysis with other people. This is the summary of my findings. Prevalence in mental health problem increase in GB, Scotland, England, especially amongst young adults. And prevalence of mental health seems to have decreased among old adults, which is also an interesting. Maybe for the old adults, you see the platform, social platform have helped. For example, I can see my parents-in-law that now they are very happy to communicate with us using Facebook. They live in Finland. So, yeah. So I don't know if, I think it'd be interesting to analyze a bit more. See, these are the people who have contributed to the papers that I've presented today. You see, there are non-economists, which is interesting. People are interested in different things, so try to be a bit.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. We have a few minutes for more questions. So, and I'll let you manage the question.
I guess I have one. So the trend you showed us demonstrate that mental health was already deteriorating before the pandemic. Do you take that into account when you compare the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic period, or just take 2019 and compare with 2019?
Okay. Here in this paper we compare the 2019 to the pre-pandemic, and probably some of this deterioration, but no way that is accountable for the trend. Okay, but really we are talking about 0.001. Okay, so something like that is nothing like, But then, in fact, this deterioration that you are talking about is. You can see here. You see that's this line. Yeah.
You couldn't include most recent years, including COVID, because that wasn't collected in these data. That's only.
We exclude the year COVID. No, because we were more interested on general trends. COVID was very peculiar, which you don't know where it's going on. So that was more. We were more interested in general trends to understand if they follow the mortality or not, and it seems very much they do.
The neuroticism result is interesting. In that field, neuroticism is really of the big five. It's the most toxic for your mental health.
Yeah.
Here you find when you make adjustments, the interaction disappears. Do you have any sense about which of the covariates is the most significant in that story?
Yeah, I still struggle to understand the intercept.
I'm sorry.
Not the intercept, the you see what we did? Can I have sorry, the
I think there's a job.
I haven't been using chalks for a while. Here you have a, say, mental health, G, H, Q of individual I time T. Say here you have an alpha plus, you have a beta personality of I plus gamma personality of I plus time, let's put T, the wave, plus a bunch of other stuff. When we include this, it disappears. So basically, it doesn't affect the slope. It only affects the shift, but not the slope.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's in some ways it's a provocative result. I mean, my sense of neuroticism is it's something like sensitivity to the environment.
Yeah, and that's exactly where you expect to have a strong effect.
Yeah, and it's not there. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's something else in your model that's deflating that.
I tell you that in the moment where we add this, this is not.
It's just the personality itself.
It's the personality itself, yeah.
So it's not sensitive to the pandemic.
It's not sensitive to the period, yeah. It's just a shift there. We don't know where it's coming from.
I mean, it does, in the sort of descriptive results, so it does look.
Yeah, but probably you see what's going on. It's a difficult, you see, when you work with interaction. You have this shift. It looks like probably it's a shift in the sense that you see people experience more, yes, but there's no difference in the slope. And that generates the thing, no. Okay, so I'm having a hard time to this, even in the paper, no? The only thing we say, it disappears, who knows why, maybe because people are more used, but we don't interpret much of it because it's difficult to interpret these econometric things. But it'd be nice to write a paper just because of that, just to about that.
One thing that social psychologists say is that basic neuroticism is a lot about interpersonal interactions. And so if you had a measure of that, that'd be very interesting. Because it could be that the people who are very neurotic in regular times, when they no longer have to deal with like interpersonal
they are happier.
Their mental health might go up in that upset.
Yeah. That's a good point, yeah. I remember, I have a paper on Journal of Economic Psychology 2010 where we analyze the effect of happiness on income, how this is mediated by neuroticism. And effectively, neurotic are highly sensitive, not very much to their income, but to the income compared to other people, to their relative income, okay, which is what you're saying. So the neurotic are also there, say, oh my goodness, he's earning $2 more an hour than me. I'm going to get bankrupt, something like that. Yeah. So
Anyway, I wanted to thank you again, Eugenio. We're just heading to 1 o'clock. Thanks again for this great.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that.